And we're live. So, hi everyone. Thank you for coming and welcome to today's class. Today we are going to be talking about set 11, the new set upcoming tomorrow, March 5th, as I mentioned, is going to be when PBE is available. And it's very exciting stuff. There's going to be new mechanics, new units, new traits. So we're going to be talking about that today. If you are in the Discord channel, I know there's quite a few of you today. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute your mic or type into the VC chat. I'll be happy to help you there. And any big questions, please leave them for the end. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you join the Discord channel, check out the description, and we'll be happy to invite you and welcome you into the community. So set 11, I hope you're excited. I sure am. Let's get straight into it. So the new mechanic that we are going to be playing with is called encounters. So I'll be talking about what an encounter is, how many there are, what type of things they provide, and just how to play around it in general. We're going to then move on to our unit rundown, and then that will lead us into our traits rundown. I'll talk a little bit about competitive TFT, not too much, because I know that not all the information is out yet, but there has been a little bit of a change to the North American circuit. We're going to finalize with some final notes and a summary of everything today, and then finish everything off with a reflection and enter our Q&A. Okay, so let's get into it. Set 11, we are into our Inkborn Fables now, so it's pretty exciting stuff. I'll talk about encounters first. So this image here is what an encounter is going to look like. These will happen at random parts of the game, and they are going to be basically a champion. It doesn't really matter like what champion. It just affects like what the actual effect is, but like some like units or some like god will appear up onto your board and then basically either prompt you for a choice. So in this case, this encounter, it's on 4-3. It's the kindred encounter, which gives you an option for a temporary item for 3 rounds. So this is just an example. And this encounter is going to prompt you for a choice, either like redemption or giant slayer. Sometimes it's items, sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's going to be the outcome of a combat, so either win or lose, or the encounter is just going to like directly affect and like directly affect either like unit appearance or like unit number, your free rerolls, this along these lines. So it's not always going to be a choice where you have to select something. Sometimes it could just be an effect that is already going to be implemented, and there are many different encounters. As I mentioned here, there's over 80 different encounters. That's what Mordog says, or at least the Riot Games team. So I will not be going over all of them. That is just way too much, and also not all of them are released yet because they want to keep us guessing a little bit. So yeah, that is what encounters are. This is the new mechanic of the set. Very exciting stuff. However, just know that this will increase variance a bit because we'll never know exactly what encounters is coming, how many there are, because there's going to be at least 2 encounters per game and a maximum of 5 per game. So you'll always have at least 2. Remember, they come at random times, these main encounters, and then you'll have maximum of 5 encounters. There are some encounters that will appear on 1-1, which I'll talk about on the next slide, and then these will replace the region portals, and everybody at the start of the game will know exactly what the encounter, like the game encounter, will be for that specific game. So I'll talk about on the next slide, but basically this is it. Very exciting stuff. You will be there's going to be a lot to get used to, but it's very exciting, and some of these encounters are pretty fun. So this is the new mechanic. We'll get into the 1-1 encounters now. So there are 3, maybe they'll add more before live comes, but for now, there's 3 that have been released. So Bard, Hui, and Kane are the 3. Bard affects your levels, Hui affects like your first slot of player shops, and Kane is, I think, one of the most interesting ones. Basically on 5-4, so stage 5 round 4, your placement, your current placement is determined because he's going to kill everybody in reverse order. So basically if you're in 4th place by the time 5-4 happens, then you're going 4th, or if you're in 1st place when 5-4 happens, you're going 1st. So very exciting stuff. But these are the 1-1 encounters. So as you see here, it's going to replace the region portals, and everybody will see the effect, and then this is how the game is going to play out from here. So those are 2 different types of encounters. You have your main ones and you have your encounters on 1-1. And yeah, pretty exciting. I'm really excited to see the entire list of encounters so I can start theorizing and seeing how to play around them. but it should be a pretty fun mechanic. Okay, so now that we talked about the new main mechanic of set 11 Inkbore Fables, we're going to move on to our unit rundown now. And I'm going to classify this in 4 different categories because it's going to be a lot faster than just going over each individual unit and what their ability is. Just classifying them and lumping them in specific groups is going to be better. So the first one is going to be frontline / tanks. Next one, we're going to talk about melee carries, move on to backline carries, and then last but not least, move on to backline support units or supporting units. So the first one is going to be frontline or tank units. We're going to go from the top to the bottom. So at the very top, we have like 1 cost units, and near the bottom, we have our 4 and our 5 cost units. And as you can see, a lot of these traits, they are going to be like Behemoth, Bruiser, Warden, Mythic, and Porcelain, which I'll talk about after I talk about the units. So for 1 cost, we have Cho'Gath, Garen, Jax, Kobuko, and Malphite, and Rek'Sai as our frontline / tank units. As you can see right away, we have a lot of frontline 1 cost melee units. So it's very interesting. We're definitely going to have a lot of different options for playing frontline early game with our 1 cost. And then 2 costs, not so much. Aatrox, Nico, Shen, and York. So only 4 options here compared to 6. And then we go back into our 3 costs where we have some more. So Mumu, Diana, Alawi, Tahm Kench, Thresh. And then we go into our 4 costs, Annie, which is a little bit of a surprise. Most of the time you think Annie is a ranged carry, but no, in this case she only has a range of 1 and is supposed to be a frontline tank with Tibbers. Galio, Nautilus, Ornn, and then for 5 costs, frontline / tank items, or tank units, we have Rakan. So remember, these units, they don't particularly do a lot of damage. These are shielding units, these are healing units, these are units that provide some sort of CC most of the time, but they are not our carries and they do not do a lot of damage. So Behemoth, this is what the icon looks like. It kind of looks like a Colossus or just a very big fellow. Whenever you see this icon, then you're going to know that this unit is a Behemoth, and this means that these units will have bonus resistances. So I'll go more into in-depth traits after we talk about the units, but this is kind of a new one. It's like kind of like Sentinels in the past, but these resistances are only for the specific units. Bruisers has been around for many sets, so this is just going to be HP. Warden is related to damage reduction. Mythic gives health, ability power, and attack speed. And then last but not least, another new trait, Porcelain, is going to be damage reduction and attack speed on cast. So these are the frontline / tank unit traits. And yeah, so it should be pretty cool. I don't have any specific compositions for today, so that will most likely be next class. Today is just going to be a reveal, seeing what the units look like and seeing what their primary role is. So this is going to be your frontline tank units. Just the biggest thing to mention once again is just the 1 cost. Like there are so many 1 cost frontline tank units that there's going to be many different ways that you could play around them on stage 2. Okay, moving on into more exciting stuff, melee bruiser carries. So as you can see, we immediately drop down to match less. We have Kha'Zix, Darius, and Yasuo as our melee / bruiser carry units for our 1 cost. Moving on to 2 costs, we have Aatrox, which you may have noticed in the previous slide was also included. This is one of those like bruiser can tank if put tank items, can do some good damage if put some damage items on them. So this unit really fulfills both roles, depending on how you itemize it. Gnar, Qiyana, Riven for the 2 costs. And then we only have a couple 3 cost melee carry units, Volibear and Yone. Moving on to our 4 costs, we have a small amount as well, so Kayn, Lee Sin, and Sylas. And then we have a couple of our 5 costs for our melee bruiser carry units, Set, Udyr, and Wukong. Now, being melee, one thing to note is they are going to have a much easier time dying or at least getting CC'd or locked up than ranged units. So you make sure that when you are itemizing your melee units to either give them some source of healing or some source of aggro drop, and then in some cases some source of crowd control reduction. Some traits, as you can see, Duelist, Umbral, these are some very prominent traits for our melee units. So Duelist, of course, most of them are just going to be melee units. I think maybe it's just Tristana is the range duelist, maybe one more, but for the majority, most of the duelists are going to be melee. Umbral as well is kind of a new one, so I'll talk about Umbral more in the trait section. And then last but not least, Reaper. It's a built-in crit, kind of like the assassin slash rogue slash vanquisher of the sets, but these are the type of traits that really have a lot of melee units in them. All right, very exciting stuff. Let's move on to our backline carry units now. And you could just immediately see the difference between the melee units and the backline units. There are a lot of backline carries in this set. And well, I mean, you always have a lot of frontline units, but yeah, definitely a lot of backline carry units. So we'll get straight into them. So starting off with one cost, we have 4 of them here: Ahri, Caitlyn, Kog'Maw, and Sivir. So these are going to be some backline units that you'll be playing around early game, trying to win streak, or just trying to kill some units. Moving on to 2 costs: Kindred, Lux, Senna, Teemo, and Zyra. So 5 here. And then we have a lot of 3 cost backline carry units. So Alun is a new one. This is Aphelios' sister in the lore, and she's not an actual League of Legends champion, so she is just included in TFT. And then of course we have Aphelios, the brother. And then Bard, Tristana, Zoe. So then Tristana is the backline carry of duelists, or backline carry of a duelist unit, although most of them are melee units. Kayle is only here because I have Story Weaver in here, which I'll talk about more in the traits. So Kayle is not an actual unit, she is a summon, but I can't get rid of her in tactics.tools. A lot of 4 cost backline carry units, so Ashe, Kai'Sa, Lilia, Morgana, and Syndra. I'll talk about Morgana in a second, but Ashe, Kai'Sa, Lilia, and Syndra, these are going to be your backline carries. These are going to be the main standard carries you're going to be stabilizing and rolling for most of the time on level 8, and really helping and pumping out damage on your board. Morgana is a little bit special because of her kit. I guess we'll talk about more of this in a future video, but she can be frontlined because of her healing from her Sage. So that is, Morgana will not always be in the back line. Sometimes you could drain tank with her, but that'll be for another day. I just want to point that out for real quick. And then moving on to our 5 costs: Irelia, Lissandra, and Xayah. Right off the bat, you may have thought, Irelia, what? Is she a backline carry? Yes, so she is not melee this set. I'm actually pretty sure she has a range of 7, which is insane. So definitely put her in the backline. And she has a unique kit where she has her ability after like 8 attacks. So a very custom, very unique, and make sure that you put her in the backline. Okay, traits: Arcanist. This has been done before. This is basically Sorcerer. This is basically Spellweaver minus the scaling. So this is just pure ability power. Most Arcanists are backline carry units. Snipers, this is not purely not exactly like the opposite of Arcanist, where it's just physical damage. The physical damage from Arcanist, but most of these snipers do, actually not all of them. So I'll just say snipers do percentage damage based off your distance. This has also been done in TFT before, but as implied in the name, snipers are backline carry units. And then last but not least, trick shots. This is the ability damage spread, similar to sharpshooters in previous sets. These are also going to be backline carry units. So that's all of the backline carry units here. Some of the units also have supportive effects, so they will be included in the next slide as well. But there are definitely a lot of backline carry units this set, and they're going to be very exciting to play around. Okay, and then last but not least, we have our supportive units. So Sivir, although she does do damage and can be used as the carry, she also has a supportive effect in her kit where she can give attack speed to adjacent units. Janna is a shielder, so this is supportive. Senna, I believe, actually gives attack damage to adjacent allies. Not 100% confirmed on this, but Senna does have supportive a supportive function ingrained into her kits as well. Alun and Soraka, they are supportive units. Alun can be a carry, I think. Not 100% sure yet. We'll test it tomorrow, but they have supportive effects. And then Morgana, Azir, and Hui are our final support units, with our 5-cost support units being quite well with a lot of healing, providing frontline with Azir and healing from Hui. So there's going to be mostly invokers that are supportive, which is just going to be mana gen. And then, as I mentioned previously, between like backline carries and backline supportive, depending on how you itemize them, they can have different functions, even with like frontline carries and frontline tank units, such as Aatrox. So these are the 4 classifications of units. There are 60 units in the set, and it's going to be pretty fun. We're going to get to figure out exactly like the bits on each unit, but this is at least an intro to their primary roles of how they will be played onto your board, whether they are in the front line tanking for your team, whether they are most of the time in the second row so they don't get aggroed first, doing major damage. However, they are melee and will require some source of defensive item, whether they're in the back pumping out damage most of the time in your very 4th row here away from the enemy, especially if it's snipers, they'll be in the corner to maximize distance, or if they're just backline supportive units and really helping buff out the actual carries of your board. So plenty of new units, very exciting. We'll see how that unfolds. Now that we've talked about the unit rundown, we're going to move on to traits now. And for traits, I'm just going to talk about each trait very quickly. I'm mostly going to try to relate them to previous traits. So if you have played TFT in the past, even just by reading this, you may be able to figure out, oh, this seems very familiar. This has been included in a previous set under a different name, maybe with a twist. But if you are new to TFT and maybe this is your first set, that might not make sense if I use the relation, but I'll still try to explain this so then you understand. So Dragon Lord, this is similar to the Tempest trait. After 8 seconds of combat, something will happen to the board, the dragon strikes, and then will deal percentage health damage to the enemies, and then also give you attack speed. If you remembered with Tempest, they eventually changed it to percentage damage increase, so maybe that will happen here, maybe it won't, but that's Dragon Lord. Most of the time, I'm assuming only 2 will be teched in to at least get the board-wide damage. Dryad, a little bit of ability power. The main thing with Dryad is stacking HP. So as you see here, 4 HP per enemy death. So you will most likely want to be playing this from like a win streak position, because if you're playing Dryads and you're not killing anything, you will not be stacking any HP from your enemy deaths. Fated. So there's 2 parts of Fated here. The first part is going to be percentage health increase. So if it's just 3 Fated, then it's only going to be 2 units getting this percentage health increase. But once you get to 5, then it actually, I'm pretty sure, is still 2. So sorry about that, I baited you there. But that's the first part. So it's just going to be a pair getting 20% bonus health. However, the second part is going to be a Fated bonus. So this is similar to the true damage of set 10 bling bonus. It does not have to be an item to activate this. You just have to have Fated activated. But basically each Fated unit, whether it be Ahri, Yasuo, Kindred, etc., have some bonus implemented into their kits once Fated is activated. So 2 parts of this, it's the health and then their ability, like their extra ability. Also after this, I have some summary slides for the traits. So if you forget about something, I will cap it out, or like I'll recap it and summarize it right after this is finished. Fortune is going to be our econ trait of the set. Very fun. Lose, gain luck, and then lose luck when you win. Basically, this is kind of like your risky yet high risk, high reward econ trait for the set, as there is always an econ trait. So if you get fortunes early, you're able to start gaining luck by losing fights, and then get a pretty big cash out and hopefully try to win out from there. Ghostly is a little bit similar to Shadow Isles, if you remember this trait. Basically, after dealing or taking damage X amount of times, then this trait will activate. However, in this case, you're going to be sending out specters, and you're going to be healing percentage max HP and also increasing bonus damage for enemies that have these specters that are haunting them. Also, specters are going to be passed on to death. So pretty cool. I'm going to see how this works out, but you have a little bit of like defense from like healing max HP and also offense of the enemy taking bonus damage. Heavenly is going to be our new guild trait. If you remember guild, basically by playing more heavenly champions, well, first off, each heavenly unit provides a specific bonus. So like Kha'Zix is going to be crits, Malphite is resistances, Nico is health, Qiyana's attack damage, etc. And then the more heavenly champions you play, the more the bonus is implemented. One thing to note is heavenly is also, this trait also is a scaling trait based off of your unit's star level. So the higher star level, the more percentage of these bonuses of these stats are implemented, whether it's like 2-star, so it's 50% more, or 3-star is 90% more. So heavenly reroll is going to be a comp. Ink Shadow is going to be a mix of Shimmer Scale and Zon. So very cool how they implemented this. Once you activate 3 Ink Shadow, you will get 1 Ink Shadow item. And now this is, well, technically it's called Ink Shadow Tattoo. So it's going to be like one of these. It's a little bit of a mix of both because it's not a permanent item in the sense where once you place it on a unit, it's stuck on that unit until either you sell it or you reforge it, something like that, or pop it off. It's kind of like Shimmer Scale in that sense where if you just bench your unit and you put your unit back onto the board, this Ink Shadow Tattoo will pop off, right? But it's Zon in the case where these items give a specific combat bonus depending on what Ink Shadow Tattoo it is. So it's a little bit of both. And then so that's the first part of Ink Shadow. It's going to be this item that you could take on and off, and then has a damage bonus or some combat bonus onto it. And the second part is Ink Shadow champions. They gain percentage bonus damage and damage reduction. So this is definitely a combat oriented trait. I think it's pretty strong, and you'll most of the time, or not most of the time, but you will be highly encouraged to at least flex 3 Ink Shadow into certain comps. Okay, Mythic. Moving on to Mythic, we have another combat trait. So Mythic provides HP, ability power, and attack speed. So most of these units, I think almost all of them are dealing magic damage. Bard has a little bit of mix, but most of them are dealing magic damage. And then after 4 player combats, they become epic, and this bonus is increased by 50%. So try to get these Mythic champions or Mythic units onto your board ASAP if you're playing that, so then you can get this 4 player combat stacking, and then after 4 combats, they become epic, and they get an extra bonus. Okay, we're almost at the 50% point here, so bear with me here. Porcelain is a new trait. Basically on cast, then these units will then gain attack speed and damage reduction. So this is on cast, attack speed and damage reduction, pretty cool. Story Weaver is the new summon trait of the set. So this is going to be, I would believe it would be a vertical trait where you're trying to increase the power of your summon. And then as usual, the summon powers will increase based off of the star level of your Story Weavers. So try to make sure that your Story Weavers are at least 2-star, and then hey, maybe there's going to be a Story Weaver reroll where by 3-starring your Story Weavers, your hero or your summon / KL is going to be very, very strong. And then this is the KL. Pretty cool. I won't go over all the effects, but this is going to be your summon unit from Story Weaver. Umbral, I mentioned I was going to be explaining this a little later, so now it is later. Umbral is going to be a mix of like KDA. So once you play Umbral, you're going to get specific hexes that are going to be illuminating in the shape of a moon. And then when you place units on them at the start of the combat, they will gain a shield based off how many like breakpoints of Umbral you have. And then also these units will get a percentage health execute. So very good, kind of similar to the Ghostly trait where you have some sort of like defensive and offensive components, and then once you get to 6 Umbral, the entire board is illuminated with this like moon, and it doesn't matter where you place your units, they will get this bonus anyway. Okay, and then our last one in the first half is going to be Altruist. Altruist is basically a team-wide resistance, so 10, 25, 40, and also a built-in gunblade from the Altruist damage. So pretty cool traits. We're gonna move on to the second half now. So snipers, this has been done before. These units innately gain 1 extra range and deal more damage the farther away their targets are from them. So this is why I mentioned in the actual board, most of the time you'll be wanting to put your snipers in the corner to really maximize the distance from the sniper's shot and the target they're hitting. Arcanist is going to be your bonus AP trait. It only gives AP, so make sure that you're not building pure AP on these units because you already get so much AP from Arcanist, and you're building other statistics such as mana gen, attack speed, healing, or even percentage bonus damage increase. The artist is just for Hui. Basically, she is a unit printer, like a Nico printer, but just for specific units that are placed on the fifth slot of the unit bench. So I'm actually not sure the numbers, but if you have Hui on your field, the 5th slot of your bench is going to be like illuminated and special, and whatever unit you put here will get another copy of them, X amount of rounds depending on your Hui's star level. So if you get a Hui early and you're able to play on your board, you are going to be able to print off some copy of whatever unit you want in this 5th slot and then get an extra copy of them. So pretty good. If you get it very early, or even like a random 2-star way early, you're going to be able to start printing units pretty quickly. Okay, Behemoth is going to be one of our frontline tank traits that I mentioned, armor and magic resist. And then once a Behemoth dies, the closest Behemoth gains 50% more armor and magic resist for 5 seconds. So make sure you're building HP on these units. And then opposite, Bruisers, you get so much HP from this trait. Make sure you're building resistances on Bruisers. Duelists, this has been done before, just stacking attack speed. You see most of them are melee, 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 range, melee, melee, and range. So purely damage traits, and try not to build attack speed on these units because they already get so much attack speed from their trait. Exalted is going to be a new one. So basically your team will gain bonus percentage damage based off of your level, and then more based off of your level. Also, after each combat, you're going to get 2 XP in something called a soul core. And once you sell your soul core, you're able to claim that XP back. So I'm going to see how this trait plays out. I cannot tell you everything about it because I haven't tried it out yet, but very interesting and should be very cool. Great is just one of Wukong's, I guess like legendary, because he's a legendary unit, it's one of his like custom traits, but basically he just like cycles through his abilities, nothing too crazy here. Invoker is mana gen. And then lovers, okay, so lovers, wow, that is a really large, there we go. Lovers, it's basically going to be Rakan and Xayah. So basically whatever position they're placed in, whether it's the front 2 or the back 2, they will have a special effect. So if it's in the front 2, it's going to be Ultras Rakan, and if it's the back 2 rows, it's going to be Trick Shock Xayah. So it's kind of similar to like Adaptive Helm, except this is like a unit at this time instead of an item on a unit. Reaper is a mix of rogue and vanquishers, where at the breakpoint of 2, the Reaper's abilities can now crit, and they also gain extra crit strike chance. And then on 4, it's similar to the 4 rogue, where their attacks will bleed enemies for bonus true damage over X amount of seconds. Sage is similar to previous sets Strategist, where allies in the front 2 rows will gain an effect and allies in the back 2 rows will gain an effect. However, compared to Strategist, it is no longer shield for the front 2, it is Omnivan. So this is exactly what I was trying to say earlier with Morgana. I've seen some comps where Morgana is just going to be drain tanking with the Omnivamp in the front line because she's going to be hitting the entire board, or most of the enemy board, and then healing off that. So then by placing her in the front line, she was able to drain tank, get mana fed instead of just sitting in the back line and healing at full HP. Okay, Spirit Walker. This is kind of similar to Fiddlesticks. Not really, in the sense where Udyr, once he goes below 50 HP, his like second part of his ability activates, and he is going to go from doing a lot of CC into single target Tiger Strikes, where he just like slashes with his claws repeatedly in the enemy backline. I'm pretty sure he drops aggro, which is the point that Fiddlesticks I'm trying to make there. But yeah, very good. Normally Udyr is just going to be like doing a lot of CC and like ramming through units, hence the Ram Slam. And then after 50% maximum HP, he is going to change over to Tiger Strikes. Okay, we're almost near the end here. Trick Shot is our backline trait for damage. Just make sure that you remember it's the Trick Shot's abilities that are going to ricochet, not the Trick Shot's auto attacks. So these are technically ability based units. And then once you go from 2 to 4, the ricochets increase, and then the previous bounces damage increases as well. And then our very last trait that we will talk about is Wardens. So Wardens gain DR, so you're going to be wanting to build resistances on them and HP to really fulfill that frontline damage reduction, resistance, and HP core. So that was a lot of traits. I guess I will quickly go through them again, like just to summarize, but it'll be like very quick. So Dragon Lords is Tempest. Dryads is permanent HP on enemy death. Fated is percentage HP plus the bling bonus minus the item of true damage. So each fated unit has an extra ability ingrained into them. Fortune is our econ trait. Ghostly is a mix of like Shadow Isles minus the HP max healing, or not minus, but included with a healing of percentage max HP and bonus damage. Heavenly is previously Guild, scaling with star level. Ink Shadow is Shimmer Scale / Zon items. Mythic, oh, by the way, these are what they look like. So as I'm going through them, you could try to figure out exactly which ones I'm talking about and get used to these icons, because you're going to be on carousel. You're going to be checking out like, okay, what are these emblems? And it's pretty important to know. So Mythic, as mentioned, HP, ability, power, attack speed, and then after 4 combats, they go up by 50%. Porcelain is going to be attack speed and damage reduction for 3 seconds after casting. Story Weaver is going to be our summons trait of this set. And then Umbral, we're going to have like not actual KDA hexes, but hexes such as KDA where they will now illuminate, and then units on them will have a starting shield and percentage HP execute. And then last but not least, Altruist. There's going to be a team-wide resistances from this trait, and then it's like a built-in gunblade where any damage that Altruist units do will heal the lowest HP member of your team. So that was in the first half. And then second half, snipers, right? +1 attack range and deal more damage based on the hex distance. Arcanist is just flat bonus ability power. Behemoth is resistances. Bruiser is health. Duelist is attack speed. Exalted is one of the new ones, so percentage bonus damage based on level. Then you also get 2 XP per combat. Invokers is mana gen. Reapers is vanquishers mixed with the 4 rogue effect. Sage is the strategist, but instead of shielding, it's now omnivamp. And then trick shots is similar to sharpshooters, where your abilities will ricochet. And then last but not least, the warden trait is relevant with damage reduction. So I know this is a lot of different traits, but at least having an intro idea to what these traits do will help you, along with the primary role of these units, will really help you hopefully in PBE and also in the actual live, of understanding what a unit is supposed to do, and then from there you could play around it through itemization and just team building. So final notes, because it's a new set, you have to really read through the unit's ability, and you can't just assume what it is, either from previous sets or if you play League of Legends. So at an initial glance, you might think like Aatrox, Darius, and Yasuo do physical damage. Even though they're considered like AD units or physical damage units, they do magic damage in the set. So you're not supposed to be building attack damage or physical damage items on them. You're supposed to be building AP or magic damage. And then Bard in the set also does half physical damage, which is unseen because normally Bard does magic damage. So keep this in mind. And then throughout PBE, make sure you try out different lines and really like experiments. But the biggest thing for PBE is just get used to the feel of the new sets, either through the encounters or just for the units, and get used to like picking up units on a roll down and like recognizing what you're looking for and recognizing the units picture in the shop. So this will give you a really big advantage for when live comes out, which is going to be March 20th, and it's going to be very exciting. So thank you all for coming to today's class. I'll end the recording here, and